So Beto O'Rourke threw his hat into the ring and announced his candidacy for president on March 14th in this 3.5-minute long video with his wife Amy. Now, I've never watched Beto speak before, and if you haven't either, let me warn you about the excessive arm and hand movements. It's almost as though he's trying to compensate for the fact he hasn't got anything to say worth listening to. Even Jimmy Fallon took the piss out of him on The Tonight Show.
Hi, I'm Beto O'Rourke, and I'm excited. That's it. I'm just excited. Oh yeah, I'm also running for President of the United States. I love the United States, and I love running. In fact, I literally just ran 8 miles to get here. God, I feel so passionate right now. I love America. I love democracy. I love air.
And the president also had a few choice words about Jazz Hands O'Rourke.
Well, I think he's got a lot of hand movement. I've never seen so much hand movement. I said, is he crazy or is that just the way he acts? So I've never seen hand movement. I watched him a little while this morning doing, I assume it was some kind of a news conference, and I've actually never seen anything quite like it. Study it. I'm sure you'll agree.
But the flailing hands aside, the real reason this announcement video was problematic with the wokerati was that his wife didn't say anything. According to the appropriately named Avery Blank at Forbes, this is another illustration of how women are often overlooked. Now, call me old-fashioned, but I couldn't really give a shit what Beto O'Rourke's wife has to say anyway. She's not the one running for office. Just as I couldn't give a shit about what Melania Trump does with her time. And just as I didn't give a shit about Michelle Obama's virtue-signaling bullshit. And when the first female president of the United States is eventually elected, I'll expect her husband, whether he's a man or a woman, to shut his or her yap because, again, he or she wasn't elected. And yes, I get that an eloquent spouse might sway the kind of simpletons that vote with their emotions rather than on policy, but there's plenty of time for a potential First Lady to make speeches on the campaign trail. I mean, the election is more than 18 months away. Now, I don't agree with much of Bill Maher's politics, but you got to give him credit. He's willing to call out his own side for their woke bullshit. And this to me is going to be one of the most comical things to watch in the Democratic primary race. Observing Democratic candidates trying to outdo each other by genuflecting on the altar of woke progressivism. And Beto O'Rourke is doing his level best to demonstrate his woke credentials. Within days of the announcement of his presidential bid, he's had to make numerous apologies for being a teenager and praising his wife. Apparently, O'Rourke belonged to a hacker group as a teen and wrote a handful of posts on the group's message board under the name Psychedelic Warlord, including a fictional piece he penned when he was 15 about children getting run over by a car. Beto grovelled. I'm mortified to read it now, incredibly embarrassed, but I have to take ownership of my words. Whatever my intention was as a teenager doesn't matter. I have to look long and hard at my actions, at the language I've used, and I have to constantly try to do better. Yes, that's the age we live in now. We must self-flagellate over teenage shenanigans. But poor old Beto couldn't use the excuse of being a teenager for the heinous act of praising his wife for doing most of the child-rearing. Apparently, Busy Hands Beto at multiple campaign stops in Iowa stated that his wife, Amy, has raised their 3 kids, sometimes with my help. Clearly this was meant to be in praise of his wife, but for the perpetually offended, this was just more evidence of the double standards women have to put up with. And given that Beto has a net worth of between $5 and $10 million, and his wife's father has an estimated net worth of around $500 million, do you think his wife may have had some help with the kids? I don't know, but I think it's a possibility. Anyway, here's Beto's confessional when asked about it on a taping of the Political Party Live podcast in Cedar Rapids.
It's constructive criticism. It has already made me a better candidate. Not only will I not say that again, but I'll be much more thoughtful going forward in the way that I talk about our marriage and also the way in which I acknowledge the truth of the criticism that I have enjoyed white privilege.
Ah, yes. Purify your soul, you sinner. Confess that white privilege. Testify. Incidentally, he also acknowledged his white privilege on Ellen.
And recently, they already knew that you had a DUI 20 years ago. You were 26?
I was 26.
26.
Just turned 26.
So you had a DUI, and then recently now there are new details, and I just want you to be able to talk about that.
Yeah. 20 years ago, I drove drunk. A terrible mistake. There's no explanation or justifying that. Since then, gone on with friends to start a business, with Amy to raise a family, serving my community in the United States Congress. And in many ways, that mistake did not define me. I was able to go on and do these things. But I know to some degree that's a function of the fact that I'm a white man in this country. I know that if I were African American, if I had been arrested with marijuana, it might be very hard for me to then get a job. I'd have to check a box on an application form. I couldn't finance my student loans. That might very well narrow my choices and options in life, as it does for so many in a country that has the largest prison population on the face of the planet, one that is disproportionately brown and black. I want to make sure that everyone has a second chance. That's a lesson that I take from this, and something that I want to use as motivation to make things better for others who may have made mistakes in their lives.
All right. So,
Well, I believe in second chances too, but by my count, Beto's already had about 4 second chances in the first week of his campaign. But seriously, it's probably a good thing for O'Rourke to get out in front of the negative stuff early on. However, if you're going to apologise for every accusation levelled at you by the wokerati, you might as well rebadge your presidential candidacy to your presidential apology tour. Or better still, if you're serious about acknowledging your white privilege, why don't you just step down and fundraise for an underprivileged minority candidate and take your rightful place as an ally of the woke? I'll see you next time.